Cindy Cluett here from Beyond the House. Today what we need to discuss, and it's a really big question at this time of year, is how to prepare your newly planted evergreens for the winter. So why do we wrap our evergreens in the winter? When you first plant your tree, shrub, whatever it is, that is evergreen. Okay, so evergreen meaning something that holds on to its needles in the winter time. You have a very small root system when you first start it. So let's say you planted it spring, summer, fall, whatever. You don't have a really big root system. You want that evergreen to be watered all the way up until freeze up so that it can absorb as much moisture as possible before the ground freezes. The reason we do that is because evergreens, this needle, continues to lose moisture throughout the winter. Okay, so as it loses moisture, it can't take any more up because the ground freezes. So you have to make sure that that tree, that shrub, is as imbibed with water as possible before the ground freezes, because we call it winter desiccation on evergreens. So in order to prevent desiccation as much as possible, water it all the way up until the ground freezes. And even now, this week, it is November, what date are we, Crane? 7th, 8th?
7th, 8th.
Like, this is crazy. I'm outside in my shirt and I'm not freezing cold. We're usually wearing long johns at this point in time. But anyhow, so it's still warm. Those plants are still absorbing water and they're still losing moisture as well because they are transpiring. Make sure to continue watering, okay? We all think it's like, it's good, we're done now, it's November, but it really is temperature dependent. So the next step is to try to prevent it from desiccating. Is in the wintertime we have these crazy northwest winds that hit our plants, and it ends up drying out the little evergreens, so all the needles will dry out a lot faster. It's the wind that's drying out the plants. It's not that the plant isn't hardy. That's not why it didn't make it through the winter. It's because the wind is drying it out. We'll often see in the springtime a lot of death happening in the evergreens, but it could have been because you didn't water it enough the previous summer when there was a drought. It looks like it's alive, but it's not, and that's when you'll start seeing all the needle drop in the spring. So what we do is basically I build a box. So I take some 2x2s or 1x2s. 1x2s work fine, especially with the price of wood these days. And then I basically create a box around the evergreen. Now, that being said, I'm using this as a demonstration, for demonstration purposes. This plant is well established. I do not need to wrap him anymore. I do this for newly planted evergreens. Or if you have an evergreen that is borderline hardy, like a zone 5, and that you know it's going to suffer from winter burn, then do it every year. Okay, so I've got all my other 3 posts in, so I'm just going to add my last post. And make sure it's sturdy, because you don't want to have to run out there when it's minus 20 to pound it back in. So now I've created a box, okay? And what we recommend wrapping your evergreens with is, it's a winter blanket. It's called Ergotex. It's a polar fleece, no different than that. And lots of people ask me, can we use burlap? And I'm going to show you why we recommend this over the burlap. And just know, a product like this is it's a high-end polar fleece. There's different grades. You can get cheaper stuff for sure. All the noise in the world is happening all at once. So I hope we'll test to make sure you can hear this, but you may want to turn up the volume as the helicopter goes over our head. So, see how thick this polar fleece is. It's a very, very, maybe Crane can zoom in while the helicopter goes over. I'll stop talking and you can zoom in to take a look how thick this is. Okay, so it's there, you can't see through it or anything. And that's what you'll notice. You pay less and you'll get a thinner quality. Then you end up having to double it up anyhow. If you're going to have to double it up regardless, you've doubled the price of the product. So, and that's what I'd like to get at with the burlap as well. If you look at burlap, it's full of holes. You can see right through it. So with that in mind, that is not going to do anything to cut those winter winds. So if you're going to use burlap, make sure you double it up at the bare minimum, if not burlap 3 times, 3 layers. So if you have some burlap kicking around, it does work. Just make sure to double or triple it in order to prevent the wind from breaking through, because that is the goal. So now I take my handy dandy stapler out, and I'm basically going to start on one end, staple that in. Very busy spot today. Staple it here, and then basically staple it at the bottom. In the middle. And then you're all set. So this bit I just cut off. Okay, so what you see is I have left this open. Okay, and a lot of people ask me, it's like, oh, do I have to tie it up tight, tight, tight? So if you think about how this tree is growing, it is continuing to transpire all through the winter. So it loses moisture through the needles. It's breathing. If we get a really nice warm sunny day and you've tightened this up tight, 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 it basically burns on the inside. It gets too hot in there for the tree to be able to breathe. I'm not looking to protect this tree from winter. I'm looking to protect it from the winter winds. Okay, so it's not the cold that's the problem, it's the wind. It's a desiccation. So at this point, I've tucked it into its blanket, a little cocoon, and it should be fine. Now, remember that in the springtime when you take this off, you want to make sure that you take off the winter wrap on a cloudy day. Cloudy, rainy, just not a hot, sunshiny day, because if you take it off on a hot, sunshiny day, this tree has not been used to any sun on all these sides all winter long. You don't want to burn it. You don't want to shock it when you take off the wrap. So that's basically how we wrap up our evergreens. It's a wonderful product that you can use for many purposes. You can wrap trunks with it if you want. The one thing that we do recommend, now that you've wrapped your evergreens, quick thing, if you are doing a juniper, a ground covered juniper, if it's newly planted, we would take that little bit, I'd cut that off, I would throw it over, and I would just put some pins in or some rocks to hold it down. For those, it's okay to wrap them completely. I'm doing that just in case we don't have any snow cover. And it gets down to -25, no snow cover, wind whips it, and you're gonna get some browning on the junipers. And like I said, there are some evergreens that you should wrap every year. There's some trees that you should wrap every year too. If you look at your Japanese maples, things like that, anything that is borderline hardy, this is a technique that we recommend to wrap your plants. This is a coil that can be used to wrap the bark on trees. So a newly planted maple, they grow very, very fast. And any fast growing tree has a tendency to be susceptible to sun scald. So what sun scald is let's pretend there's a blanket of snow here. The sun is going to hit the snow in the wintertime, and it bounces off of the snow and it reflects onto the trunk, usually the southwest side. So it's going to end up heating up that trunk. As it heats up, the sap starts flowing. Okay, so it's warmed it up enough to make the tree think it's coming out of dormancy. At night, temperatures drop down to, let's say, -25. Everything freezes and the cells pop, and what happens is you end up getting what we call sun scald. And that's where you're gonna start seeing like basically a fissure going along the bark, and it's gonna crack, split that trunk open. Once it's started cracking, there's nothing you can do to prevent it other than keep wrapping it in the winter until it's developed a really, really nice thick bark. Bark is a protection of the trunk until you have a thick bark. Continue wrapping it with some coil. You can use burlap to wrap it. What you're trying to do is prevent the warm-up of the trunk by the sun in the winter, okay, and that flash freeze that happens at night. The other thing this stuff is really good for is to prevent those little rodents from chewing on your tree. If you have apple trees, fruit trees of any type, use this to prevent the little bunnies from eating away at it. Sometimes if the snow gets up really, really high, think about that too, okay? So without the snow, the rabbits aren't going to get up to here. With the snow, if you have 3 feet of snow, now they can start eating at the top. So protect all of your fruit trees, maple trees, any of the fast-growing guys, to prevent sun scald. Cladrastis is another one that ends up getting sun scald.
What's that?
Cladrastis. Cladrastis lutea is a yellow one. One of my favorite trees, but super fast-growing. I love its form, I love its shape, but it is susceptible to sun scald in youth. Okay, so I think that's about it. I've zoomed through everything. If you have any questions.
What else can people put to prevent animals? There's that Scoot.
Yes, we have a few products. You can use Scoot to prevent. It's not even rush hour and it's so busy here. Scoot is a really good product. Basically, it's a product you can spray on your. It's soluble, water-soluble powder, and you spray it on your plants. Is there anything else we carry? You can wrap it, like you can do exactly what we did here. That's going to help prevent the bunnies from getting in there. Or putting a cage around it, some chicken wire around your trees. I've seen that happen too, where people just to keep the little bunnies out, because they do a lot of damage in the wintertime. It almost looks like a beaver went through it. Last year my Japanese maple, which I call a shrub because it used to be a tree and then it died back and it's a shrub now. They had just basically chopped off all the stems, and I would sit there and watch them, but what are you going to do? Chase them all night long trying to make sure that they don't hurt your little trees and shrubs as it gets a little old. So anyhow, that's what I did. Basically chicken wire around it, and it prevents it from hurting it, or a spray with Scoot. Any other questions, Green?
No, that's all for now, thanks.
Okay, all right. Well, I hope everybody has a great day. We still have this whole week. It's going to be beautiful. Take advantage of this great weather to get everything prepped. You do not need to put the fleece on now. Oh, and yeah, so you don't need to put the fleece on now. That can be done in December, but you need to get the stakes in the ground because once it's frozen, it's really, really difficult. Other thing that you can get into the ground all the way up until freeze up are bulbs. So we still have a really nice selection of tulips and daffs and some camellia, some different things like that. They're all 50% off right now, and in a way I'm okay if you don't buy too many because I wanted to do mass plantings around the store. So, but it's all the way up until freeze up. And make sure to use your chicken manure for that because otherwise these squirrels come and chew them up. So chicken manure on top of your bulbs to prevent the squirrels, and all the way up until freeze up. You can go. Okay? All right, everybody, have a great day and enjoy this beautiful weather.